clickbaity Instagram post context. So I'm winning.
Well, we'll see about that, won't we? Actually, now that I think about it, what was my point?
Brilliant. That's a really cool idea. I've never considered that. I figured today, following on from the eyeliner stuff that we did the other day, we could talk about just kind of the parameters of composition. I have a very surface level understanding of this, but this is still the kind of thing that I have done in school, kind of without thinking much. Like I'm always thinking about other things like lighting, and I've kind of left the blocking to the director. So it's kind of something I work around instead of kind of creating. So if I'm thinking really heavily about like composing my image and placing my subjects in certain areas and where to put the camera relative to the environment and all these things, like what are the parameters I'm after to think about? If you had to sum it up to like this, and this, when thought about, is how you should approach composition.
Quick and easy one.
Yeah. Sure, works for me.
What is composition? Why do we do it? Why do we worry?
Well,
not so simple after all.
Yeah, that's rough.
I mean, this goes back to something that we've thrown in here and there. When you're not getting answers, are you actually asking good questions? So very often it's about, are you asking the right questions, right? So people kind of go, should I use lines? Should I use rule of thirds? Should I use golden ratio, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
All the lines as well, like
whatever the kind of technique is, when is it best? All of those kind of things. But how can you answer that question if you don't know why
you're doing it? Yeah. Well, composition affects literally the way that the viewer sees a subject and their environment and their relationship to other subjects in their environment. One example I can think of is how I see the effect of composition. It's a great shot in The Last Jedi where Luke is standing far away from all these those big walkers, the big camel walker things. And because of the way the shot is composed, on the screen he is taller than the walkers because you've got a low angle of Luke from behind and the walkers are quite far away. And that's like my favorite shot in that entire movie. Like that's kind of what I think of when I think of how affecting composition can be, because they put thought into that. And regardless of if the viewer knows it or not, they, for that brief moment, see Luke as being stronger than those walkers, even though obviously in the real tangible environment, he isn't. That's kind of my reference point for how composition can affect the viewer, if that makes sense.
Let's take it even further back then. What does the word composition mean?
Oof, Jesus.
What kind of dictionary-wise?
That's a very good question. I feel like I know a lot of words, but don't know what they mean.
Or can you think of other contexts outside of filmmaking where we use the word compose and composition?
Well, music is a number one. That's the go-to. That's people creating music to move people.
Can you think of other contexts?
The way that something is physically put together, the composition of something, collection of parts. They go from being disparate elements into one cohesive object.
And that kind of ties into similar roots to the word composite. What does composite means?
Oh man, you're really challenging my vocab right now.
We have a tendency to skip past the actual word or
that's true.
The phrase to describe something, and we want to race to unlocking the secrets of this thing, and very often big clues are in the way it's named.
Well, I mean, composite, the root word comp for like basically anything compound and composite, except for like things like competition, like kind of
communication, community,
loosely applied to things being put together or a message being sent. Loosely. A compound word is like, two words put together to create another word. A composite is something that is things put together.
So if we take that, can we have composition in an image if there's only one thing?
No, I suppose not. You got to have a bunch of things working in unison. So it literally that is like the word for all of the things that you could possibly do to an image put together.
In music, are the words similar to composition?
Yeah.
Such
the words.
In music, what's the relationship between composition and arrangement?
Well, composition is the initial putting together of notes and often instruments to make a noise. And then an arrangement is moving that around from memory.
To put it a different way, can we have a composition with that as some sort of arrangement?
No.
So in and of itself, the composition is one type of arrangement. So if we take that back to image composition, then what's a different word we can use?
Arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the arrangement of the things in front of the camera. All the, like, it's playing with action figures, but on like a bigger scale, moving them all around.
Yeah, or a bit like Tetris.
Oh, okay. That's not a metaphor I would have jumped on. Tetris.
Or you know that really old game, the slider block puzzle. Like it's 9 little squares in a grid, and one is empty, and you can move them around, and it's a broken image, and then you have to try and move them around, slide them around.
Ah, right. Okay. All right.
To complete the image again. Kind of like, yes. I guess, kind of like a one-dimensional Rubik's Cube.
Yeah. I thought it was something a lot more esoteric for a second there, and I was like, "Oof, what's happening?"
No, it's funny,
I know these.
It took me like well into my 30s to actually find a name for that game.
Spider block.
Slide block. So you literally slide the blocks around.
Block. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because those were like Happy Meal toys.
Everyone knows the game, but no one knows the actual name.
Damn, that's a tragedy for the slider block community.
Why do we bother about arrangement? Why do we bother about composition now that we kind of have the bare bones of
they like affect the way people feel about them? With the Last Jedi example, for example, to put it completely simply, the way that things are arranged on screen, how big they are, how small they are, how far away they are, how big they feel or how small they feel, how they are relative to other subjects in the environment affect the way the viewer feels about them and their situation subconsciously.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Eventually, but I think we are skipping a step or two.
Oh, okay.
Which I think is maybe why you find it challenging.
Yeah.
The arrangement is about where do I want you, the viewer, to look.
Right. Of course. Sorry. Yeah, that's a very good point. I jumped the gun with that one. Hence, rule of thirds. Isn't that based on the way that people? Isn't the rule of thirds based on the way that people naturally absorb images, or is it just a lie?
Don't know about that.
Just a lie?
Okay. Don't know about that.
Because there's that rule of graphic design where you're supposed to have certain things in the top right. Or I sound like an idiot right now because I don't know anything about this, but do you know what I'm talking about? Some graphic design rule where you have to have like certain things in certain spots because humans read a page in a certain way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Part of having something feel like it is deliberately composed is that the majority of viewers will look in certain spots.
Mm-hmm.
Their attention will be drawn to those particular spots because of the arrangement of visual elements.
Ah, okay.
And importantly as well, I think this is something that sometimes get lost because we tend to just transpose traditional two-dimensional still image art theory about composition and putting it straight onto motion picture. But there is an element that very often gets forgotten before we skip on, and that is time and rhythm.
Time and rhythm, as in the amount of available time for the crew, or time being spent on the shot in the
No. I'm still talking composition.
But time. Oh, isn't like time the sense of time? Unity of time and place.
No. Well, kind of. Composition is about where should I look, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a time element, a rhythm element to it as well, and that is not only where should I look, but when and in what order do I see it.
Okay. I get you. So to think about. That's one of those things that like is pretty much unfathomable to me, being able to like control the viewer in that way. Like I'm sure there's ways I'm doing it without knowing now, but like just being aware of the way that the audience is just going to like absorb my image and knowing how to manipulate that sounds like a lot of years of actual practice instead of just like immediate learning.
I think as with anything else, it starts with asking the question.
Yeah, that's true.
Where do I want you to look? When do I want you to look there? And in what order do I want you to see things?
So what are the considerations we're making? What do we know about the viewer that can inform us in controlling where they look and how they look at it and for how long. Like, what do we know about audiences? What are we supposed to be manipulating to make them absorb the image in that way?
Contrast and detail draws the attention, movement. And here's another one to that time element of composition is implied movement as much as actual movement as well. Then there are certain ratios.
As in, like, is that where we get to like lines and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Possibly. A lot of it as well is about rhythm. And basically what I'm talking about there is the movement of the viewer's eye. If you can create a rhythm there, you're more likely to keep a viewer's attention. And by arranging, placing these rhythms throughout your image, you're more likely to be able to determine when and where are they looking.
Right. Okay.
So let me give you an example. Do you see my finger there?
Yep.
And I try and trace from one diagonal to the other. So if you try and follow that finger, you do follow it, right?
Yeah.
But is that movement more or less interesting than this movement? Can you feel your eye kind of doing almost like little dance steps as opposed to just the one step after another when you're walking?
I'm engaged. Like, I move it from there to there is predictable. Like, I can track it. You know, your brain can kind of think it's moving along the diagonal. But I'm more engaged when my eye is just going like, wow, where's this funky fella going? Like, what's he up to? I can't predict his movements at all, you know?
But can you feel in the movement of your eyes there, if there is rhythm, your eyes are moving in a rhythm as opposed to in a straight line? So that's part of the timing element I'm talking about. Same as there are certain curves that are more engaging. Again, so if we try that, so the straight line versus that.
Right.
What feels more dynamic and engaging?
The curve, you know, it's got a. It also has its own timing. Like, it's almost it's got its own kind of like.
It's also like we all recognize that curve.
Yeah. I'll go turn my fan on. Hang on.
Variation of an exponential or a logarithm, or if I try and do this, where are we? Right. Do we recognize that curve?
I was going to get quite mathematical as well, but then I just kind of knew I'd screw it up real badly. So I was waiting for you to say something
recognize
about logarithms. Is it the Fibonacci situation? Okay. My math prowess is really exposed by me saying the Fibonacci situation. I'm aware of it in like a clickbaity Instagram post context where they say like X director uses Fibonacci thing to trick you. And that's it. That's all I know. God, my hair is not on my side today.
Do keep a couple of cultural things in mind as well, particularly when we start considering the time and rhythm consideration. Reading direction really plays into it as well.
Oh, I hadn't considered that. So
have you noticed how Asian cinema can feel a bit slow and contemplative and a bit like that compared to Western cinema?
Yeah, like the popular examples and stuff, yeah.
Some of that has got to do with, as a Western viewer, we view left to right as forward because of reading direction. But for a lot of Asian languages, it's the other way around.
Right.
Because they read right to left. What is forward and what is backwards movement is... It's
just different. Given the fact that we're in a Western country at the moment, that one of the ways to kind of create a more easy to absorb, like in terms of the movement and timing, we would want our arrangements generally to move left to right if we're moving forward
movement,
in the plot.
And that's why I am so big on pivots in coverage
Yeah,
because
all right.
I use screen direction as momentum emotionally. Who's in charge, who's leading the scene, so to speak, are the ones who are moving forward. But then
So
they
as an
meet an
example, would you
obstacle
say
and then they have to turn back. But then they come up with a solution to
right,
counter that.
right.
Then they move forward again. So in terms of like
Yeah.
a scene having the upper hand change between characters, I often like changing that side to side pivot screen direction.
Oh, okay. So if you were to have a shot reverse shot of two characters, the one who was hypothetically looking to the left is not doesn't have the upper hand, and the one looking to the right does. Is that what you're saying?
So you think
Huh.
for me that is kind of
Wow.
like it's not arbitrary who ends on which side of the screen when you enter into a shot reverse shot.
Oh, okay. It's always been arbitrary for me. Which of us has the upper hand right now? Which direction am I looking in? Am I on the right? Do I have the upper hand?
I will eventually be looking right to left because I've flipped my
When we
screen.
run this through post. Okay, yeah. So you'll be. So I'm winning.
Well, we'll see about that, won't we?
We should do a pivot one day. Find a way to coordinate an over zoom pivot.
But my point being there that actually, now that I think about it, what was my point?
What was your point? What was your point?
So screen direction shouldn't, in my opinion, be arbitrary.
Yeah.
Kind of like you have to play a little bit of a 3D, 4D chess game, thinking about...
It's beginning to feel like it, yeah.
As in, character may start moving forward, so to speak, but at a certain point there needs to be a reverse, a setback. Right? Otherwise, we don't really have a dramatic scene, right?
So if I were to like hypothetically apply this rule, we have a conversation between the main character and someone else, like maybe an antagonist, who knows? Character is on the way to achieving their goal. They're looking left to right. Antagonist is looking right to left. And then the antagonist reveals, actually, I've kidnapped your dog. And then a pivot happens. And our main character is looking right to left because they've hit an obstacle and they're no longer on the way to their goal.
Yep.
So that's how you would apply that in your as
a very kind of simple one-dimensional level. Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. That's a really cool idea. I've never considered that.
Think about it this way. Classic Hollywood Western movies. The hero rides into the sunset.
That way. Oh, that way. Sorry, I've lost my bearings again. Yeah.
Left to right. Hardly ever do they ride straight into the sunset. It's always a little bit left to right.
And then we have obviously Super Mario. Super Mario is the ultimate example of this. He walks left to right. And you can't walk left. That's relevant.
But my point being, screen direction, like reading direction, isn't arbitrary, in my opinion.
Yeah. Should we ask our viewers, if anyone here has any experience with that, do you apply a paradigm to screen direction? Especially during like shot reverse shot conversations, for example, like coverage? Do you apply...
I think it's pretty clear where I stand on it, so I'm not going to say anymore.
Do you apply meaning to which direction your characters are looking in, dear viewer? I think they got the message.
In terms of how to go about it, probably the best way to start this, if you feel like you really don't have a handle on it, is to start with drawing or something, sketching, something like that.
Oh, man.
And stick to the simplest geometric shapes possible.
I listened to your advice. I did my morning pages today. While I was in bed. One page, as you said. So I could just go around. I could just draw some cubes if I'm feeling uninspired. I'll just draw some fun cubes, rotate them in my brain, draw that, see what happens. Simple geometric shapes.
The simplest geometric shapes, the ones I am referring to, are circle, triangle, and rectangle. And rectangle can be square or rectangle.
Yep.
And then, using only those shapes, pick an emotion to illustrate.
Oh, is this an upcoming exercise? I smell. Is this a come back to me in 1 or 2 weeks situation?
Could be it.
We could craft this into an exercise. Through our eyeline exercises, I'm really hungering for a mandatory exercise that I have. I haven't watched Dune yet though, so I need to watch Dune first.
Composition exercises. Now, this
So,
is a
okay,
challenge, viewer,
let me
because I'm going to have to make up exercises as we go along. So,
as we go along.
not entirely sure yet how well this is going to work, but
I have an idea.
Yeah, go.
Okay, so obviously there's a lot of parameters here. So you could assign me an exercise so our island exercise was the same thing over and over again for 4 weeks, which is kind of follows your musician philosophy situation. So you have, I think you have two options here. You could give me over the course of 4 weeks one element of composition, i.e., drawing certain shapes with certain emotions, to do twice a week for 4 weeks and really perfect. Or you can give me like 2 exercises per week, and that week is just one parameter, and then the next week I'm doing 2 exercises of another parameter, and the next week I do 2 exercises of another parameter, and then we need to think of a really elaborate punishment/reward system like we did last time.
In terms of the simple shapes, your basic geometric shapes: circle, triangle, and rectangle. So be that square or rectangle. One thing I think that is really important with composition, it's always in relation to a frame.
Right.
As in, there's always a boundary to whatever we arrange.
So would drawing just kind of isolated shapes be a bit redundant?
Yeah, so it's kind of, I guess, like the difference between blocking and staging.
Yeah, okay, I see what you mean.
Just the relationship between two performers, two actors, doesn't really make coverage until you relate it to the space and the frame, right?
Yeah.
What I'm thinking is to make it a bit more tangible, and I suspect that we may fall into the trap where the lizard brain kind of judges you on drawing skills rather than composition skills.
I'll try to avoid it.
I think I have a way of doing that. What's that children's toy?
Etch-a-Sketch?
Where you got different shapes blocks, and you got like a little plank with a hole.
Oh, the one where you like, I don't know what it's called, but you have like a big box with all the holes in the top, and you have
What's
to fit
it called?
the shapes
Help me out.
there.
Yeah, like
I don't know
shapes,
what it's called.
whatever.
It's a Fisher Price thing, and there's a little trick with those. If you the
rectangle,
the triangular prism, I'm pretty sure this triangular prism fits in everything. So a really stupid and or smart kid could just put the triangular prism in every single shape. Yeah, there's a great video of this guy going like triangular prism. You know what? We should link it in the show notes. Give it a bit of exposure.
What I'm thinking is let's go with composition, black shapes against white background.
Okay, black shapes against white background.
So yeah, get yourself a reasonably big sheet of paper.
Should I be taking notes?
You know, you can always kind of just skip back in the recording if you want to.
That's a very good point. We are recording this.
Yeah. So I'm thinking like A2.
Oh, all right. I don't know if I have A2 on hand.
You got your bounce boards?
I do got my bounce boards. That's true.
Did you get black ones as well?
Yep.
Yeah. So I would cut an A3 within the A2.
Okay.
And then lay that on top of a white A2. So think your full size black A2, cut a smaller hole inside it.
Yep.
Similar to the size of an A3. Yeah, so you make a frame. And I like having the black frame because for me, it's one of those subtle little hints about trying to make us think as if we're seeing the image in a cinema. And then get some black paper. You can get them from newsagents, whatever. And cut out, I don't know, maybe let's go 8 triangles.
Yep.
8 circles. And maybe 4 squares and 4 rectangles.
Identical?
Let's go with that for now. I think longer term, it would probably be good to have different sizes, but let's stick identical, roughly the same size for all of them. Obviously, the rectangles are going to be a little bit different to squares.
Yeah.
And then, again, like pick that emotional state and then try and lay down your shapes in an order to illustrate that. If
they're all identical, I can't really.
So then it's all
like depth or
all about the arrangement.
Oh shit! Damn. Okay, That's really scary. I could do that in MS Paint.
I think the advantage is that you don't give your lizard brain an opportunity to judge your drawing skills.
Look what came up.
I don't know.
It's reminding me to get back to making thumbnails. All right.
Yeah, I think we are potentially short of you, aren't we?
Do you think it's worth having a crack now? Let's
sure.
try and prove the concept. So if you were to give me,
here's the trick. Or the big challenge is try to avoid as much as possible the temptation to put the shapes together to make them recognizable objects.
Right. It needs to stay abstract.
Yes.
Okay.
So it is about the arrangement. So for example, try to avoid putting the rectangle with the circle on top because that starts looking like a person.
It's a person. Yeah. I'm thinking I already have one for sadness.
Try to avoid kind of facial expressions. You know, like one rectangle and two circles. That's cheating.
Oh man. Okay. Because my brain went like, oh, sadness. And I'll be like, I'll put like a this here, and then I'll like rotate it a little bit. So it's like facing down a tad, and then something. But then I realized the reason I was thinking sadness was because it looks like a desolate landscape if you were to apply imagination to it. And it's no longer abstract. Okay. If I had to give you with all these shapes, let's see if you can do it first before I do. All these shapes.
Sadness to me is about feeling down. Right. So I'd want to bring the attention downwards rather than upwards.
Okay.
Right. So I think for me also sadness isn't necessarily about looking forward. Most of the time, at least in my opinion, sadness is about looking backwards, something that has already happened.
Yep.
So I'd want to imply right to left rather than left to right.
Okay. I'm going to try and take this to... I'm going to keep this droopy rectangle fella. They're facing downward, but they're also pointing right to left.
And that's difficult with equal-sided triangles, though, to...
Yeah. Pointing is not very easy with them.
Yeah.
I could make it like...
No, don't. Cheating.
But that disobeys the rules of nature. Okay, so I think we've got something good going with these three, sorry. What are we doing with the square and the circle?
Okay, so for me now, what's happening, you see the rectangle, the circle, and the square kind of create a right angle.
Okay, yep,
so
I see you.
You see that the length, long axis of the rectangle almost meets up with the circle.
Yep.
And then if you take a hard left turn from the circle, it's almost a 90-degree turn too. So that for me is a really strong shape that suggests leading my attention up.
So we want to move
Whereas
that
for
down.
me, the attention, I would want to bring the attention down.
Up two triangles to the left of that are pointing kind of to the left and are very, very low on the screen. A circle in between two of them, which is kind of low, and then a square in the top left corner. What I'll do when we finish each of our things, I'll put like sadness in the top right corner, and then like this will be our thumbnail. People won't know what the fuck this podcast is about.
Let's try then. Take the circle, move it to the right. Right. Now make another rectangle. Then create another rectangle. Yeah, a bit more. We're going to keep making a few more of those.
It's getting very oppressive now, I've noticed.
Like, you see about where do I want the energy going?
Can I add to this theoretical? I'll add more rectangles for you, and then I'll get my 2 cents in. So we're actually making a museum of contemporary art piece right now.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a new rectangle. Bam. Where do you want it? All right, that's looking quite sad. And then can I add? I want to add to this.
Just wait before you do. Now, if you start with your cursor, don't actually move anything, but move your cursor. If you start bottom left of frame and follow the triangles, come to the circle, and then go up to the center mass of the rectangle.
Center mass of the rectangle. Which rectangle?
Top right. Does that remind you of a curve we mentioned earlier?
You've been playing the long game with this one. And yes, it is the curve.
Right. Now, the isolated rectangle on the left.
Yep.
Where does that point?
To the circle, kind of. It's also on that diagonal.
Middle rectangle that's kind of poking into frame. Where does that point?
The circle. and this part of the frame.
That's more accidental. I could claim that, but yeah, that's more accidental.
If I were to apply the sadness situation to this, what I think I might do, this is great. How much of this episode is me being terrible at graphic design? Sadness. It's been snipped. I'm going to save it to my cinematography folder, composition, new folder, abstract arrangement. I'm going to name that file Kim Sadness, because Ethan Sadness
Going to be different.
has a different look, and it's very, very similar, but I'm just thinking about it, given the left to right situation. I really like this sadness. I think it's better than anything I could have made independently. However, I think it moves too much to the right. It's too much of a positive forward movement. Hence,
that's about the rhythm, though.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got strong kind of pointers towards the circle, right?
Yep.
But then what happens? Because of the triangles, does your eye not go back to the left?
That is a good point. It kind of goes...
And then comes back.
I see.
All right. Now,
because
you got that clipped. Remove the triangles and see where does your attention go after the circle then. Now it kind of stays more over to the right, doesn't it?
Goes to the right, yeah. So what I was going to suggest...
So it's about that rhythm.
Yeah.
Composition is a dynamic thing.
Yeah. We're not even factoring in movement right now, but that's another
But we are implying movement, and by that I mean we are making the viewer's eye move.
That's a good point. So if you look at abstract arrangement, right? I'm going to get this folder open and see if I can change my screen. Because what I was thinking, my logic here was that we've got generally our forward movement, our positive movement for a character is from left to right because of our reading direction, as you mentioned. So here we've got all of these oppressive elements that are obstructing our left to right movement. However, that's a good point that the viewer's eye kind of naturally moves to the right. So that's a kind of a flaw. So if I were to redo that, I might put more rectangles on the right side, and instead it kind of blocks off that movement. Because I don't know why, but I don't know if you agree with me, but I've kind of developed an empathetic attachment to the circle. The circle is the subject here. The circle is the protagonist.
Okay.
Are you feeling that?
Fair enough.
That was what I was thinking. That was what I was throwing around. Okay, I've got back to Canva. We're on sadness. That's I reckon I could probably do this in Canva. Would that be okay?
I think you're better off trying to do it with cutouts and physically.
Right. Because
I have a suspicion that with any kind of software, there's a temptation to kind of try and fully design it.
Right. I see.
As in, you go in and go, oh, I've got the text tool. Oh, I don't know what to do. I'm not getting anywhere with this. Just like I do with the text.
May
May
I test that theory for the first week and see if it works out in Canva, or just go straight to cutouts?
I think you do both. If you do want to test it, I think do the shapes first.
Yeah.
So you take away as many of those temptations as possible.
I'll make
and
all
also
the shapes.
Also about that whole kind of shutting up the lizard brain, trying to find other means and other excuses.
Right.
And I would also set a time limit, I think. I think for these, a lot of exercises I am finding is to build muscle memory, it's better off being done fast.
Yeah, like you mentioned with your sketching. I've had an idea. Re-exercise. Picture this. I'm pitching it to you. I do this exercise in 2 parts over the course of a week. So I do one half of it and the other half of it, and I do it 4 times, right? First half, 1 week, I make up my emotion image with my time limit and everything. 1 or 2, whatever. My next task for that week is to annotate it with drawing and text to justify why I think it conveys that emotion. Draw your curve and everything. Not even drawing the curve? No. How am I supposed to explain myself? No?
It either works or it doesn't.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, not to tell someone. If I annotate it, you can tell me, no, that didn't work. No, that was didn't. That, okay.
Nope.
All right.
Nope.
All right. Okay. What do you think I should do? What's the nature of this exercise? How often should I do it? How many weeks am I doing it for? What's my punishment?
I think personally doing 5 images a day, but limit yourself to 3 seconds per image.
Wow. Okay.
But do them every single day.
All right. So I'm just gonna add that to my. How do I add that to Microsoft To Do. I've got a little to-do list on Microsoft, and it's very
Format, I think it's much better to do it physically
yeah. That
because
does it sounds something I have to do like a lot. I can't really drag things around in 3 minutes, 3 seconds.
3 seconds, and also
Yeah.
like you're not waiting for the software to boot up,
Yeah.
all of that kind of
I
thing.
feel like it. I feel like it took us a lot of thought to do that other one though. Like we spent a lot of time on it. I feel like given 3 seconds, that's 1, 2, 3. I will literally be left with like
Exactly.
nothing potentially.
Well,
Like
that could be the development curve.
right. Okay. Okay. It kind of encourages me to get these things more ingrained in my head so I can work on them faster.
Hmm.
Right. Okay. All right. I'm down. I'm game. How long am I doing this for? Am I doing this for the course of the next week?
Five a day for a week is 35 then.
Uh-huh. That's pretty good.
So then how long do we think?
I honestly think that not 4 weeks. I'll be exhausted. I literally think this could be something I could do over the course of the next week.
That's 15 seconds a day.
True. I'll also have to get all the stuff out. I don't know. I reckon we do it for a week because that way we can catch up next chat and run through it.
Mm-hmm. There we have it, viewer.
Hang on.
The whole kind of. Oh, sorry.
What's the punishment for not doing it?
Oh, sorry.
We've got to have a reward punishment system because like I still haven't watched Dune. So I haven't rewarded myself my most recent one. I might watch it tonight, maybe if I can have the time. But like, what's the reward and punishment?
Are you going to think of it in time for when I've edited this episode so we can put it in the notes, or are we actually just going to sit here now and watch the cogs in Ethan's brain turn?
It was very quick last time. My logic was that I would give myself like a piece of media that I'd let myself watch a piece of media that I enjoy, and if I failed, I would remove a chemical buffer from my life for long enough to make it hurt, but not long enough to recover from the chemical buffer's hold.
Well, okay. So, do we want to do the punishment? Just keeping with that.
No coffee for 3 days. Yeah, that's a good point. That's still punishment enough. And if I win as a victory, I will. I think it should be another movie. I will watch
Big Lebowski?
The Matrix. Oh no, what's The Big Lebowski? Not The Matrix. Thank you for saying The Big Lebowski. I will watch.
Well, no, like I'm just going by the screenshots from the
yeah, that's an immediate.
Yeah,
that was a much better choice than The Matrix. I think I will watch The Big Lebowski next week if I manage to get this done. I'll make sure I watch it. I gotta watch Dune in the next couple of days just to make sure I'm rewarding myself my previous one. And I'm starting today, I presume. I'll give you some Canva ones today because I haven't got all the tools yet. No, tomorrow I
say like we don't start it until you have got the supplies. Like do it physically.
Okay. I'll go to work tomorrow and I'll grab all the supplies and then I'll tear through it. And in that way, it won't, obviously I won't be done by the time we talk next. So I'll just like we'll catch up on it, but we won't like evaluate it. Easy, cool.
So, in a minute or so, Ethan, do you want to sum up what have we learned about composition today?
We've learned a lot about the very, very, very bare basics. What you start with, leading the viewer's eye, giving them like holding their attention, creating a dynamic.
I think that's a good way to think of it. You want to hold their hand and walk their eyes through the frame.
That's what we've covered today. We haven't focused on the emotional response or metaphorical meaning or allegory, but instead literally just how to grab the viewer's hand and walk them through the frame.
We've got an exercise to start thinking about how to use arrangement of basic shapes to lead the viewer's eye.
Now, by the time this episode is published, it's very likely that I'll be finished with this exercise. However, I highly recommend the viewer attempt this exercise as well. And if they do,
please do show us.
By that time,
did you find it useful?
We'll have some kind of social media going and you guys can send it to us. I don't know. This is all... Get it to us somehow. Find out our addresses and mail images to us. Dox us.
Yeah, because I am totally honest and admitting that I just made up this exercise, so I think it could definitely
happen in real time.
Need some development, some feedback, some improvement.
Give us some thoughts on whatever you think would be a good exercise. Build on the idea.